So look, if you want to grow your wealth, your income, and increase the amount of time off, then these are the shortcuts that can help. Welcome to the Wealth Creation Podcast. Hi, it's Dan, and in this podcast, we're going to talk to you about energy levels, because obviously, if you ain't got any energy to do business, you ain't going to be doing any business, are you? So I think it's really important that we have a chat about that. So let's just talk about it. So what we've got then is, at the moment, I'm fasting. So I'm currently on alternate day fasts. And so let me explain a little bit about that. We'll explain the energy. So although I'm fasting and I'm not physically eating food through my mouth, okay, which is how most people eat their food, I still have energy. You know, I played basketball this morning for 2 hours in a fasted state. I didn't eat since yesterday. I still played basketball. I could go run for 20 minutes now downstairs. I still feel fine. And I'm going to eat again tomorrow about 1 o'clock. So I'm alternate day fasting right now. And I've just come off a 40-hour fast, up to yesterday. I had lunch, I had dinner, and then I'm fasting until tomorrow. So literally in 4 or 5 days, I've eaten maybe 2 meals. And that's okay. And physically eating the food over 4 or 5 days, just those 2 meals, is totally fine. I don't feel tired. I feel a little bit hungry right now. That's the ghrelin, as it's called. But this is not about food. This is not about sleep. This is not about being overweight, being underweight, having low energy. So let's put it this way. Let's say that you just come off a 24-hour work shift and you've not eaten in 36 hours, but I've got a gun against your child's head and I'm going to kill the child if you don't run a marathon, right? You're going to find a way to run that marathon on your hands and legs, even if you have to crawl. And so it's not about how tired you are. It's not about how much food you've had and how much little food you've had. It could be hangover, possibly, because hangovers are really hard to deal with, but you shouldn't be having that many hangovers to deal with anyway. But the point I'm getting at here is that the energy doesn't come from you in a physical form. Your energy comes from you in a mindset form. So I've done it where I've been incredibly depressed. Kids have been abducted, really, being beaten up in court by the solicitor and the barrister. They make you out to be this horrific person, which you know you're not, but trying to defend yourself makes it look even worse. And then you've had to go on stage and perform, and you go on stage and you give the best ever speech you've ever given. If it's not the fact that I had all this stuff going on, it's the fact that the energy comes from inside of you. It comes from your mindset. It comes from, I don't want the world to see that it's winning against me. And let's step up and have energy. And let's just take all that bad stuff that's happening and let's put it over to one side for an hour or 10 minutes or however long. I've done podcasts where, honestly, I'm really not in a mood for doing podcasts. I press record and I'm like, hey, everybody, it's Dan. Massive energy. And actually, for those people that know me, you probably tell that I'm overcompensating energy-wise, but never undercompensating because it's irrelevant. It doesn't, if my legs fall off tomorrow, but I need to go live on a podcast, let's say it was as important as that, let's just say, you'd find a way of doing it. You would just find a way to make that happen. And so the energy that you have in your business, you can switch it on and switch it off. So right now, as you're sat listening to this podcast, just do me a favor, pull your shoulders back, pull your chest forward and pull your chest upwards. Your head goes higher. Look at the difference. Just there in that physical difference. One of the things I've noticed on myself is that I tend to slouch quite a lot. And I saw an advert for a gizmo that when you're kind of slouching, it vibrates and you put it on your back between your shoulder blades. And when it feels you slouching, it vibrates and then you pulls you back up. You go oh, okay, I'm slouching. And then you pull yourself back up. And I'm like, I'm going to get myself one of those. That looks pretty awesome. But energy levels, your physiology and how you are acting with your physiology can determine your energy levels. How crazy is that? If you've ever done UPW with Tony Robbins, you'll know exactly what that feels like. It has a whole conversation about half an inch and about how you put your chest out half an inch further forward and your shoulders back, and you change your psychology through your physiology. Okay? So we all wake up and don't feel like doing stuff from time to time. But it's up to you whether you accept that that is your being, your state of being, or whether you go, do you know what? I'm trying to clip my fingers. Hang on. Do you know what? That's it. Let's change my state of being. Let's change it. Like, anyone can wake up in a bad mood, and it's up to you whether you choose to stay in that bad mood or not. It's not that you're in this bad mood and that's it for the rest of your life. You've chosen that state. It's almost like, and this will upset a few people, but let's take depression. Like, let's teach me how to be depressed. What do you do when you know it's time to be depressed? What do you mean? What do I know when it's time to be depressed? I'm just depressed. Great. Well, teach me. If I wanted to learn how to be depressed, what would I do? Head down. Yeah. Shoulders down. Yeah. Okay. I'd feel like bad things about myself. Yeah. You'd think lots of bad things about yourself. Would I like beat myself up over, that time when I cried in class when I was 11 in front of a teacher and all the kids were laughing at me? Yeah, you'd replay that again. Okay, great. That actually happened. And Mr. Chester, complete and utter knob that he is. Thank you, Mr. Chester. I hope your pension's doing well. So, okay, what else do I need to do to be depressed? Well, how do I know it's time to be depressed? Because when was the last time you were depressed? Well, I'm depressed now. Great. What are you doing right now that's depressing? Well, not right now. I'm talking to you. Oh, okay. So before you were talking to me, what are you doing to be depressed? And so depression is this idea that at this point in time, this very point in time, and there are people listening to this who are depressed right now, but to some extent you're choosing to be depressed. I get the chemical imbalance. I get that. But bear me out on this. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't delete the message because you don't like it. I've had times where I've been incredibly depressed, incredibly worthless. I've replayed Mr. Chester yelling at me at age 11 at high school or whatever it was, time and time again, right? Because, and if it's not that, it's some argument that you lost, when you were like 14 or something, 30 odd years ago. You know what I mean? So I've had times like that. And I know for a fact, I don't want to move out of that depressive state. I just don't want to move out of it. I'm quite happy being depressed. I'm a happy depressive. Right? I'm happy being depressed. I don't want my state of mind changed. And then some twat comes along who's happy as you like and he does something and you can't help but laugh, but you're trying to stay depressed. I know you know what I'm talking about because I know I've seen it. Oh, life's so bad. And then some dickhead walks into a window and you laugh. I know it's not funny, but he walks into it and he bangs his nose and it's actually very funny. And you're like, oh shit, I need to be depressed. Oh, my life. And then they come up to you, and then, do you find that funny, did you? Yeah. And it was funny. But you're trying to be depressed, and now you're finding it really hard to be depressed because something silly's happened. Someone's fallen over, which is, again, a very funny thing. I had some shoes on once, and I fell over, and someone saw me, and he laughed. And they laughed, and that was fine. Jolly good for them. Luckily, I wasn't injured and all that kind of thing. But, if they were depressed at that time, they still laughed. And that's what we call a pattern interrupt, where we interrupt the pattern of being depressed. So, you try go whitewater rafting. Trust me on this when I say this, okay? If you've never done it, go book it. If you're a manic depressive, go do whitewater rafting. Try being depressed whilst you're fighting the rapids. I guarantee for 99% of people, there's always that 1%, by the way, where they've got, chronic depression going on. And I'm not joking about that, okay? So just absolutely, you need help. And that will form lithium. But for everybody else who's not in that 1%, right? 99% of the other people, you go whitewater rafting and you try and be depressed while you're doing that. Or you do go ape where you're jumping from one tree to another 100 feet up. You'll be scared. Don't get me wrong, but you won't be depressed. Go watch, let's take somebody nice who's funny. Peter Kay. Let's take Peter Kay. Everybody loves Peter Kay. Go watch Peter Kay live and be depressed for the 2 hours that he's on stage. You can't do it. It's a state of mind. And that's what we're getting to the nitty gritty about in this podcast. God damn it. Oh yes. So A state of being is about how you feel, how you see yourself, and there's certain things that you can do. The problem is that when you're depressed, and I know what that feels like, and I've been there, and you're so depressed, you don't even want to leave that state of depression. And what happens over a long period of time is that when you do leave that state of depression, it's uncomfortable because you've been living in that state for such a long period of time. So your job right now is to think about your energy, about how you're sat, about your physiology, about how you can change that. And if you are feeling down and depressed and you've got no energy, honestly, go for a run. Go play basketball. Playing basketball this morning while fasted. Awesome. Great workout. And I couldn't hit a couple of shots, and then it kicked in, and then I hit again, another 4 or 5 shots in a row, all 3-point shots. Won the game. Even though I was 10-4 down, we played 2 points for a 3 and 1 point for a normal 2-point shot. And won the game. And so the only reason I won that game, and I'm exhausted by the way, I played 2 hours of basketball, running and jumping. I'm 47. I'm unfit right now. It was tiring. But the energy to win that game didn't come from my muscles. The energy to win that game came from my mindset. Poor Richard, who I play with, he's not won a game in a long time. And it's because mindset-wise, I'm more powerful than I've been for such a long time. And you can do an awful lot of things with just mindset alone. I'm not talking moving objects with the power of your mind. I'm talking about moving you with the power of your mind. And you can do this. But you've got to manage the energy levels with whatever it is that you're turning up to do. If I'm turning up to talk on stage somewhere and my energy levels are really low, how well do you think that's going to go? And it's like, yeah, but I just don't feel like it. Fine. Pretend. Pretend you feel like it. What? Yeah, just pretend. Pretend to be happy. Pretend not to be grumpy. Or stroppy. I got into trouble last week, because somebody provoked me, a solicitor. And I can't go into it too much, but I called her stroppy. Her head exploded, by the way, at that, which I thought was quite funny. Anyway, but it changed her energy, needless to say. And words can do that either internally to you or externally to other people. And obviously when you're dealing with, like, let's say my team or my clients, I want to use positive can-do language that infuses them with energy. I don't want to be using energy that takes it away. If I'm dealing with a solicitor, boy, I want to take that energy away immediately and make them feel bad about themselves, because all solicitors are wankers anyway. So the energy level that you have right now is not based on your energy. I was thinking about this a lot. I was thinking about, Biggest Losers, where they, the weight loss program, they lose all this energy. And then I was thinking about the doctor who deals with people who are so obese they can't get out of bed, the 20-stone man kind of thing. 30 stone, 40 stone, where they need a crane to move the guy. And his mum just keeps feeding him every hour, because every hour he's hungry and he's starving and she's worried he's going to die kind of thing. Like really bad kind of mental stuff going on there. And I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, you know what? This guy's not starving to death for the next year. You could not feed this guy for the next year. He won't die. The longest fast is like 380 odd days. And it was a guy that's 30, 40 stone. He had bone broth and he had vitamins to keep him going. Bone broth is where you get the bones and you cook them in water and you make broth. You take the bones out and you just drink the soup. That's bone broth effectively. When you make it at home. And he lived on that for a year. Nothing other than that went through his mouth. And that was just getting the nutrients and the electrolytes and the vitamins that he needed. So I was thinking about that and energy, and where does someone who's really obese get their energy from? And they're burning it from glycogen in the body. And when they get hungry, they have to eat again. But actually, if they didn't eat for 7 days, all that would happen is the body would eat the fat. That's ultimately what happens in fasting. And so it's not the food that gives you the energy. I was watching Cantor, who used to play for New York. I don't think he's playing for New York Knicks anymore, but he's Turkish and he's Muslim. So when it's Ramadan, he doesn't eat during the day. And I was watching and it was playoffs as well. I was watching an interview about him not having enough energy. And I'm like, if this guy was fat adjusted, he wouldn't have to worry about energy. He'd still have plenty of energy, even though, I've fasted for 65 hours. That's my longest fast. And I could run on that last day. It's not that the food gives you the energy, because my energy comes from my fat. So it's not this physical place where you get this resource. It's your mental place. Goggins, I've forgotten his first name. If you've not read that book, you should read the book Living with a Seal. And it's about Tony Goggins, I've forgotten his name. Goggins living with Jesse Itzler. Very, very funny book, by the way. And what I love about Goggins is that he says, when you feel you can do no more, you're about 40% of using up all of your resources. When your body is broken and you feel you can't run anymore, you're about 40% up to your potential. And I love that. And when you're feeling depressed and down, you don't feel like you can do any more, you're about 40%. You can pull this out by a change in physiology, a change in psychology. There's certain tricks that you can use, like, the Peter Kay thing, or going whitewater rafting, or go cycle for 40 miles, and then tell me how depressed you feel after you've done that. Or go run for 25 minutes and tell me how depressed you feel after that achievement. Or go fasting. I always say this, by the way, if you're going to fast, seek medical attention, blah, 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 for legal reasons. Otherwise, the solicitors that I love so much will just all be knocking on my door. But, like 5 hours into a fast, I felt amazing. And I only broke the fast because I was worried about my refeed. Actually, that's why I broke it. I felt like I was going to go for 100 hours. But then I'm like, not sure about the refeed. So there's more research for me to do there. But the energy doesn't come from the fact I'd not eaten for 65 hours. The energy came from, and I was still working. I was still being a great dad, still driving, still doing everything that everybody, you and I would just do. But my body's ability to eat came from not glycogen in the blood from food I'd eaten, but from my fat stores, and I lost some weight because of it. And that's the whole purpose, as well as some repairing of cells and all that kind of thing. But your energy is going to come from your mindset. It's not going to come from your food. And that's what this podcast's about, and I hope it's been useful for you. So we'll catch up with you in the next one. My name's Dan Latto. Take care. Hey, it's Dan here. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Please click like or subscribe to the entire podcast.